clever enough to understand it and to be able to somehow work with it on a certain level, maybe on a controlled level, so it won't be in their free speech, but they will understand and they will like see the difference between are done and are doing. So I have my own system, but the thing is that my system, it's just one of the million others. So there can be other ways of presenting English. Oh, one more thing. I like to teach verb to be as it is, and while teaching it, I mean for intermediate students, for example, while teaching it, revise 3 things. State, he is here. Continuous, he is doing. And passive, well, it's done, it is done. So is, was, were, am, will be, have been as one topic. But after this, you say either what, where, or doing something, process, or done, passive. And it's one topic, but the topic is be. So it's my way of grouping topics together, and people really like it. I mean, the feedback that I get very often is like, very good. I mean, I would really like to teach things that are not usually taught. I really love to teach verb forms. Really love. Like, if it's a strong elementary group, then the first month that we're together, I will teach them all English grammar. Continuous, perfect, passive, conditional, to. Conditionals too, verb patterns, everything. Why? Well, and the topic will be 6 verb forms, because in English language there are only 6 simple verb forms. Do, to do, does, did, doing, done. That's it. There is no more. I mean, all the other 25 tenses, whatever, they're just a combination of auxiliaries and these verb forms. So I teach that. I explain, guys, we're going to deal with texts of different levels, and I want you to understand why doing, why done, why. Well, like I want you to be able to make sense of these verb forms, and I teach everything. I explain 1 lesson or 2 lessons. That I give them practice with that. They cannot speak like that, but it raises their awareness of the English language, so they receive a broader picture. So my approach is very much like in the Middle Ages. I really love this approach, Middle Ages, really. When a boy wanted to learn a foreign language, like, I don't know, in the 6th, 7th, whatever, 10th century, and the foreign language was Latin, yeah, because everyone had to know Latin. Yeah, if he spoke some kind of ancient French or whatever, so he had to learn Latin. So what he did was he had to deal with the Bible. They just took the Bible in Latin and they read texts in the Bible in Latin, and they translated and understood what everything means and everything. So he had to deal with something that was beyond his level. And this is something that I like to do, really, to give my students something that is just way above them. But I just changed the goal. Guys, here is the simple text. It's your level. Please learn to speak, like learn it by heart. Learn to produce things from this text. But guys, look, this is a text, well, it's advanced level. So in like 3-4 years time you'll be at this level. But now it's way above your level. Let's deal with it. Let's just learn to understand it. Let's learn the words, let's learn the grammar, but I don't want you to speak like that. No, it's impossible. But I really love to give my students this exposure to real life English. Only to certain groups, to certain students, to the strong ones, because sometimes you just have students with special needs, and you shouldn't scare those folks, really. You should be really careful, you should love them and give them what they can understand. But just because I understand that you should live in the language, and living in the language means contacting it with it in its complete form, when it's together, when all the grammar rules together, different words together, there is no separation. I teach them everything right from the start, But I say like this, guys, our topic is tubinushka, or be even, is, am, are. This is what I want you to be able to say. Where is your from? What is your name? He is, he was not, and so on. By the way, when I teach be, I always teach is and was at the same time. Never, never. I think it's stupid to teach was were 2-3 months later. It's just 2 words that exist in Russian. Why can't you just teach was это был, were это были? That's it. Together with am, is, are, which I always do. If I teach only be, not to be. If I do be nushka, then of course everything together. All of the things. But I say, guys, our topic is be, but look, continuous, passive, perfect, I want you to understand it. When you see it in the text, look, I want you to know the meaning. So I prepare them for dealing with serious texts, whether in listening, videos, whatever, by teaching everything, giving them this overall understanding of all the English grammar. I also love this terminology, and some of my students really like it. Just because they have this need to understand everything, I often say, guys, this is not grammar. And just because it's not grammar, like they ask me, where should I say the word tomorrow? And I say, look, this is not grammar. This is not a grammar question. So there is no rule that you should follow to use the word tomorrow. This is a communicative thing. It's your choice. When do you say the word tomorrow? Well, just say it any way you want it. It's your choice. It's 100% your choice. It's up to you. It's not grammar. There are no rules. And this is something baffling, really, for the students. They can't understand it. I mean, they can understand it, but they can't put up with it very often. With the fact that there are rules, and they can be applied into practice, but there are so many things that cannot be explained. They just have to be remembered. All these verb combinations and all these phrases, it's terrible. It's terrible for them. And so when I try to encourage them to learn these things, and they can be learned only if you have contact with the language. You cannot learn phrasal verbs using deductive method. Really, it's impossible. You just have to have contact with different texts, different contexts, for you to start feeling what this phrasal verb means, what that phrasal verb means, and everything. So, I love this terminology. Grammar, it's a rule, guys, listen. And sometimes I design new rules for my students. And actually, I work as a pharmacist. So when they have the rule will depend on the problem. So I will see what your question is, I will see what your problem is, and I will work out the rule for you. And this is something that, well, I don't know how to teach you to do that, really. I taught myself when my students asked me questions that I couldn't answer right there, and I started thinking, and okay, here's the way, here's the rule, here's the generalization, something to help them understand. But, so I say it's grammar, there's a rule, and here is the rule, and I sometimes invent for them. So like I said, it's my own system of understanding things. But sometimes I say, guys, I'm sorry. It's communication. It's just remember it. Don't try to understand it. There is no, one of my teachers of English once said, why is a historical question? Don't ask that question. If you ask the question, it means they should study the history of the language, and you don't need that. Good students, they don't ask the question why. They're not interested. They want to know what and how. What does it mean? How do you use it? That's it. So, so how many things have I mentioned? Like, I mean, when answering the question on how I teach English, how many things? Explain grammar and create my own system of grouping topics and explaining maybe certain things. For example, conditional to, I never teach conditional to the way it's taught, never. I don't say it's conditional to, I just say, guys, it's the way to say be, how to say be in English. And I say there are 4 ways to say be in English, or at the beginning I can say there are 2 ways. There's would and there's past simple. And it's just 2 ways to say be. It's, for me, conditional to is not grammar, it's vocabulary. Vocabulary, what is vocabulary? It's like word and meaning. there's a little rule there. You can say would after if, of course, but it's not grammar. For me, it's not grammar. So it's my own system, but you can make your own. It's up to you how you choose to teach it. So I explain, work out new rules, group topics together in a certain way, and of course I try to teach everything to help them understand the language, like right from the start. And then I make sure that they're exposed to the language that is from life. Like one of the first texts I teach comes from the internet. It's just jokes from the internet. Like I know that at this level I'm supposed to teach what is your name, and I may actually do that. What is your name? How are you? And everything. But I will also give them the text. Like, guys, it's from the internet. It's just some Americans wrote for other Americans just for the sake of communication, fun, and not for you to learn the language. So it's from real life. And I take the text and I explain, and when working with the text, I give them like 10, 15 different rules or different explanations, like what does mean to here. And I have this idea of linkers, for example. I teach linkers. I have a special topic, linkers. These are prepositions that I use only if there are two things that you can link. So look at is a linker, and because it's not part of the meaning. Look means look, and at you say only if you say look at me, and everything like this. So I make sure that they have contact with the language, with a real life language, not from the textbooks. But I do teach using textbooks. I mean text from textbooks, but still I like authentic material. And so these are the basic things. I try to do that in classroom, but again, encourage them to do it at home. One more thing, and this is something you're going to argue with me about, and you'll be right. I'm not going to argue with you and say, no, this is the... You see, the thing about me, I just teach the way I teach, not because it's right, just because I like it this way. For me, it's pleasure is the most important thing. If I don't get pleasure from what I'm doing, I just don't do that. Because I believe that pleasure is God's gift to humanity to explore things, to learn things. There's only one way, actually, one thing that we can use to learn anything, it's pleasure. Pleasure, it's our resource, it's our instrument of exploring the world around us. Pleasure, if we cannot learn anything without pleasure. That's philosophy behind it. So that's why I teach pretty much my way, because I like it. I like it. It's pretty selfish, I know it's terrible, but I've learned this little rule in life, so don't think too much about other people. Don't ask yourself, oh, what will they like, what will they think? To hell with that. Just do what you like. And if you share, if you make them see that you like what you're doing, people will always follow. You'll choose the right people. The right people will come to you, and they will be enjoying what you're doing with them. So just basically please yourself. Do what you think is right for you, and the rest will follow. Of course, it doesn't mean they should be closed. No, you should stay open and see and try to analyze. So this works, this doesn't work. This motivates them less, and everything. But just do what you want to do, really. And that's why I really teach English, constantly comparing it with Russian. I know that you may say that it's terrible, and I will agree with you. But I used to teach it in this way, no Russian at all. So I used to establish this rule. I was the first one to establish the rule of no Russian in my school. I was like, no Russian, and we were like fanatics about not speaking Russian at an English lesson. Not a word in Russian. Even like people who didn't know English at all, they came to us, they had their first lesson, and I taught them English and not a single Russian word. And I can do that, I still can do that, and I know that it works. It's effective. If you make sure that they survive. They should survive psychologically, because it's pressure. They need some time to adjust to it, to get used to it. Sometimes a week or two, a month or two. But no matter how weak the student is, how bad his English is, Everyone will learn to learn English without Russian. Anyone can do that. It's all a matter of time. But not everyone is prepared to wait that long. So people just give up and say, я хочу, чтобы было по-русски. And they give up, they just quit the process, they quit studying. But those who stay, they understand that, they understand your English much better. They understand everything, your instructions, your explanations much better. Why? Because basically, well, two reasons. Because you said same thing so many times, it was repeated, so they have gotten used to it. And second, because you did your best to grade your language. You did your best to speak at elementary level, using simple keywords that they can hear and understand. So I can do that. I believe it's good. Actually, I believe that studying English without Russian is super. It's like you teach them to think in English, to understand English as it is. I mean, to have ready-made phrases and structures in their head that they copy rather than translate, so discouraging them from translation, because translation really is one big source of mistakes. And I understand it, and I used to be a follower of this way, of this method, and I think people who do that are great. They're super, I look up to them and everything. But as of now, I get so much pleasure from, and I see that students like it too, that they need it, that they are motivated by translation. When I give them translation, when they are so happy, they're always like, oh great, translation. So it helps them, again, it creates order in their head. They need it, and I give them. I have developed the habit of always explaining anything in English using Russian examples. But guys, look, in Russian we have this. So I kept saying, guys, this is what is the same about English and Russian, or this is what is different. The result is clarity. So it's easier, this way it's much easier for me to achieve this clarity in their head. Much easier. And I know that they'll be translating in their head when speaking English. Anyway, even if we spend 1 year together, no Russian at all, they'll be speaking, still translating. It takes years and years of living in the English-speaking environment for you to stop translating, for you to start thinking English. I know that the right way to this, towards this goal, is no Russian right from the start. I know that. But I thought, well, I decided to sacrifice it. I decided just to always teach English using Russian examples. So I teach ov as родительный падеж, кого чего, and I teach, well, lots of things. And I say this,